former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Newt, is that what the Democrats really want, another impeachment?
Look, there is so much bitter anti-Trump feeling. I mean, you showed it in your previous segment where you have Elizabeth Warren, who's getting what she asked for, and she still has to attack Trump because even when he does what she wants, it's not good enough. So I think you've got this core group of Democrats who get up every morning and they know the answer is impeach Trump. They don't know what the question is, but they know what the answer is. Well, the average American actually would like us to move beyond that kind of stuff. They'd like us to focus on affordability, on getting the economy growing, on solving the kind of problems that are real in everyday lives, including education, the cost of healthcare. These things are real. And I think the more the Democrats get sucked into pure politics, the weaker their case will be when you get around to the 2026 election.
Take a look at this. It's from the New York Post. Our NRCC chair, North Carolina Congressman Richard Hudson, he's in charge of the GOP's midterm campaign. He is, quote, very bullish that Republicans will hold the House in 2026 despite historic headwinds. You agree with that, Newt? You're bullish for the GOP in the midterms?
Yeah, but I'm bullish in part because I think you can't take a snapshot in January and understand the politics of August and September, which is really when everything will solidify. I believe the one big beautiful bill is going to work. Again, you're a student of all this. The economy should be very good by July. I believe that the basic America First policies resonate with a majority of Americans. And I think the more the Democrats become big government socialists with weird values, the mayor of New York, and you just had a piece about this. I mean, the mayor of New York scares people enough that some of the biggest companies in New York are now talking about Dallas. Others are talking about Houston. Others are talking about Miami. These are all signs that you have a country in which the people who are in the states where they want to raise taxes, have more welfare, and of course, you just saw the scale, and Democrats want to talk corruption. The scale of corruption in Minnesota may well be up to $16 billion stolen from the American people, while Governor Walz did nothing and was totally indifferent. In fact, was firing the whistleblowers who were warning about the corruption. So I actually think corruption will be a big issue this fall, but it'll be an issue which hurts the Democrats because it will consistently be bureaucrats, big government, their union allies who are stealing enormous amounts. I think the Government Accounting Office suggested somewhere between 4 trillion and 5.5 trillion will be stolen from the federal government over the next decade. I mean, that's a breathtaking amount.
Well, one last one for you, Newt. Senate Majority Leader Thune, National Border Patrol Council President Paul Perez, they spoke on the differences at the border under Biden and Trump administrations. Watch this.
Boy, I can tell you what a difference a year makes. The president's leadership, President Trump, when he came to office, said we are going to secure our southern border, began immediately to do that. Of course, we worked with him in the One Big Beautiful Bill.
What we've been able to do with the funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill under President Trump's leadership and under the guidance of the Senate and the House, we were able to get more money than we've ever had to be able to protect this border like it's never been protected before. From day one, President Trump took the handcuffs off the Border Patrol agents and allowed them to do their jobs.
By the way, one day before Thune's speech, border agents apprehended 221 illegals. That's down from over 10,000 in a single day under Biden. Can the GOP convert their border success into success in the midterms?
Well, I think it helps some. We have to remember two things. First, as soon as something's not a problem, people sort of shrug and forget it.
Yeah.
Politics is not about what did you do last year. Politics is about what are you going to do for me next year? And I would suggest, for example, that transparency in healthcare, so we can bring down the cost of healthcare, may be as important as any single issue. I also think this fight over whether or not states and local governments can block federal agents and ICE. These are federal agents They're representatives of the United States government. I do not believe that these local governments have any right to interfere with them doing their job. And that may well be a very big issue by the summer.
Newt Gingrich, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us, sir. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
See you again soon.